just a little bit, and of course, the setting is different.
You got to pick up every stitch. You got to pick up every stitch. Two rabbits running in the ditch. Oh no, must be the season of the witch. Must be the season of the witch, yeah. Must be the season of the witch. Where'd I go?
Why, hello there, YouTube, and welcome to Witch Week. So, a whole week of witch-related reviews, and I am kicking it off with an original versus remake. And in this one, I'm reviewing The Witches 1990 and its 2020 remake. So let's start with the 1990 original, shall we? So, The Witches 1990, directed by Nicholas Rog, based on the book of the same name by Roald Dahl, starring Angelica Huston, Mia Zetterling, Jensen Fisher, Charlie Potter, and a pre-Mr. Bean, post-Blackadder, Rowan Atkinson, and with Bill Peterson and Brenda Belthin. So this one we follow a boy named Luke, whose parents sadly are killed in a car accident, and he's then his guardian is then his grandmother, and she gets this she tells Luke stories of witches, that they're evil demon-like women with bald heads, with itchy heads because of wearing wigs, with claws and a wider mouth and squared feet with no toes. That's how she tells him the story of witches, and that they are evil creatures. And and she says that when she was a little girl, she had an encounter with a witch, and supposedly the Grand High Witch, and she gets this faint feeling every time a witch is near. But Luke, thinking these are just stories and taking her to a doctor, she recommends she has a trip, a holiday. So they do that, only to find that the Grand High Witch is calling a meeting there with all the witches of England, and they plan to turn all the children in the world into mice, because witches hate children and the smell of them. And they plan to do so by buying candy stores and putting them in the sweets and chocolate, turning children into mice. And of course, Luke gets caught up in all of it with a young boy named Bruno, and they are both turned to mice. And then it's up to Luke and his grandmother to stop the evil witch, the evil Grand High Witch, from her evil ways. So let's get on to my likes and dislikes about this one. First of all, I like this one. When I was a kid, I remember being 8 and 9 years old watching this film, and I found it scary. For my 9-year-old self, this was scary. Looking at it now, it's not scary, it's very tame. I've seen far worse stuff. I'm desensitized and immune to all that. But my God, Angelica Huston, when she showed her true look, the Grand High Witch, I was like, oh, she's an ugly witch. And I thought it was quite scary as well. This even scared my sister. My sister was scared of this film. And my dad even taped it and recorded it. And we just wanted to watch it again. But yeah, I remember being terrified of that scene when we first see the full Grand High Witch. But looking at it now, I like the prosthetics that Angelica Huston wore. I mean, she only wore it for one sequence in the film because I imagine it must have took hours to get all that makeup and stuff on her. But I love how practical it looks and how scary she looks and how hideous and ugly she is. And I thought that was good makeup effects right there on her as the Grand High Witch. I also liked the, that it had Rowan Atkinson in it. Now, as a kid in the 90s, I knew Rowan Atkinson as Mr. Bean, and when I saw this, I was happy to see him in it, Mr. Bean. I'm going, Mr. Bean! Yes, I was overjoyed to know that he was in it. I felt a bit more braver knowing that if he's in a scary film, yeah, but this isn't technically horror, it's technically fantasy comedy. Of course, they had good puppetry from the mice on close-ups when we see Luke and Bruno as mice. Now, I think that these puppetry was done by Jim Henson, the Jim Henson Company, I think. And there were some good puppetry works there. I also thought, that, well, I don't think I ever found it funny, but I did find it watchable and enjoyable. Looking at it now, I kind of think it had good effects for its time and still holds up to this day. And yeah, it's a pretty good witch movie. And if you're a little kid and you want to get scared and it's but very tamely, then I recommend this one. I like the finale as well. Just satisfying seeing all the witches turning into mice after they slip the potion into some soup that their table is eating. Of course, I like the scenery and the setting too. And this is a good one. And here's a little fun fact here. During this meeting scene when all the witches unwig and, they're all bald and everything, some of those extras in that scene were men. They were. That's an actual fact. Some of the witch extras were men, bald men, that they had for it. But very unnoticeable. Well, mind you, they're witches, so I guess they're meant to look ugly. So, yeah. Of course, the thing they do change is the ending, because at the end in the book, Luke stays as a mouse, and with the limited lifespan he has, and with the age of his grandmother, they decide to make the most of their lives and go out hunting witches. And that's something Roald Dahl didn't like. Yeah, Roald Dahl hated this film. In fact, he hated it so much he would protest and tell people that are going to the cinemas to not watch this film because he hated it. I mean, he never liked many adaptations on his work, and he really didn't like this one, especially how they changed the ending to this one too, and the setting. But I still think, for me personally, it's a childhood favourite, and I recommend it if you want to slowly go into horror and you're a kid. Check it out. I mean, it is PG, so parental guidance is advised. So yes, The Witches original. What am I going to give this one? I'm going to give The Witches 1990. I think I'll give this a 4 broomsticks out of 5. 4 broomsticks out of 5 for The Witches 1990. Now, let us go to its 2020 remake, shall we? So, The Witches 2020, directed by Robert Zemeckis, that's right, Back to the Future, written by him too, and Kenya Barris and Guillermo del Toro. Yeah, Guillermo del Toro co-wrote the screenplay in this, based on the book by the same name by Roald Dahl, starring Anne Hathaway, Octavia Spencer, Stanley Tucci, with also starring Jazik Keaton Bruno, with the voices of Chris Rock, Cody Lee Eastick, and Kirsten Chenoweth. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So this is, again, it's the remake of The Witches that came out in 2020. Now, 2020 was, of course, a crazy year for us all. Cinemas were shut, films were being postponed, but this one, it managed to come out in 2020 on HBO Max, or in the UK, Amazon Prime, for a ridiculous price. But anyway, yeah, this came out and I watched it, and I watched it knowing it's a remake and thinking this one looks a lot tamer and not as scary as the original. So the story is pretty much similar to the original in the book, and of course the thing that the few changes they do make in this one is that Luke stays as a mouse. You know, they don't find a way to reverse it. The good witch, the Grand High Witch's right hand witch that turns good at the end, doesn't turn him back. And his pet mouse, Daisy, is also a girl that was turned into a mouse before the events of the film. So then next thing, there's 3 mice. You know, Luke, Bruno, and Daisy. So yeah, they change the ending, which stays more truer to the book. But you know, Luke does age faster though, because he's a mouse, and he grows up to sound like Chris Rock, who gives us a narration at the beginning of the film, and then in the mid-credits scene, and we see him many years later as a grown, well, an old-timer mouse. And also we get Anne Hathaway as the Grand High Witch. Also, this is set in 1968. You know, the childhood memory of Luke's grandmother changes just a little bit, and of course the setting is different as well. It's not set in England, it's set in America, and it's a very reliant on CGI. CG. I mean, there's CGI on the witches, the Grand High Witch. The witches, they really change a lot. First of all, they have claws, but like an index finger and a little finger and a thumb. None of these fingers here that are claws. They have wider mouths with sharper teeth. So in one bit, Anne Hathaway does a sort of Pennywise-like smile. They're still bold, but Anne Hathaway, she still looks recognisable when she's in her full witch form. They still have the square feet with no toes. So this is probably a remake Roald Dahl might approve of. I'm not 100% sure, because like I say, he hated the original film. So this one, it has a bit more comedy in there, a bit more like humour and stuff, but again, it's enjoyable, has some good songs in its soundtrack, and yeah, it's an okay remake, a very, very tame, not as unsettling for kids as the original. As like my 9-year-old self probably won't find this one too scary. So yeah, this one, is it worth watching though? Yeah, I'd say it's worth watching and checking out. Is it as good as the original? No, but it also feels like its own film. But I like that it's not like shot for shot. You know, the scenery and everything is different. The era is different. But yeah, do I prefer this one over the original? No, I think the original is that little bit better. So I'll give this remake, I'll give it 3.5 broomsticks out of 5. So 3.5 broomsticks out of 5 for The Witches 2020. So in this original versus remake review, the original won. So the original Witches wins for this one. So yeah, that's it for today's reviews. So tomorrow I'll be back reviewing another witch horror movie or witch movie for Witch Week, where it'll be day 2. So I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, and have you seen these two? You know, let me know down in the comments below. Do you like the original or the remake better? And if you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Share with your friends. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already and to hit that notification bell. All my social media links are linked down below in the description, so feel free to check all that out. So yeah, like I said, I'll see you tomorrow, and until next time, don't have nightmares.